This order is really turning out to be more quantity than quality. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to continue the unpacking of a large stack of comic books that I won at auction from Quality Comics. And I think I've finally done the math. This is part 5 of, I believe, what will be a 7-part series to get through this entire order. And I've been working really hard at getting through the order, but also cleaning and pressing a few of the books and making sure that I spend enough quality time with the comics. But I think what I'm finding is my expectations for the condition of these books are just too high. And certainly now that I have really kind of proven out my theory that a lot of the better conditioned books have been cherry picked specifically for the seller to put on their own website or even eBay or other places. And the HipComic auctions, it's kind of like whatever's left over. And I don't mind that. I think that's fine. I think there's still some good value there. I think that you're definitely getting a lot of books that are kind of the same area that I've talked about, where they're candidates for cleanup and cleaning and pressing. And I like that. I don't mind it. And I think that at the prices that I'm getting a lot of these books, I feel like it's a very fair acquisition price. But I'm definitely understanding that these are the leftovers. These are not the best of the best or the cream of the crop. These are not necessarily keys or anything. You can consider them to be filler issues or just great collectible high-grade back issues. And you can just enjoy them for what they are, as I am, and also kind of a little bit of a challenge just to see how far could you improve a book that has some surface dirt, maybe some minor corner wear and things like that. But on average, these books are really kind of hitting around the 9.0 average grade, maybe even just slightly under, around an 8.9, which then you could say is, officially the grade, but somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9. And I just went through an auction prep for the same seller in one of their auctions. And what I ended up doing is I was able to more rapidly kind of go through preparing for that auction with a few layers. One was just being able to see all of the listings in a spreadsheet. And then I applied very quickly an 8.5 to 9.2 range and then figured out, okay, what would my max bid be on that book if it fell in that range as compared to the current bid? And what I found is most of my max bids were under where the current bid was. So I don't know if there's more activity on the books now. Hopefully that wasn't necessarily my fault, because I thought that this was a pretty good source for high-grade books. But once it kind of gets beyond my max, I'm really not that interested. So it actually saved me time because I didn't have to go back and look at every scan. Now, there were a few books that piqued my interest, and I went back and looked at the scan and thought, well, those are probably about an 8 or 8.5, and then just decided not to bid anyway. And I was kind of in and out. Before it was taking me hours to kind of prep and go through an entire auction to figure out what are the 10 to 12 books that I'm actually going to bid on. And now, based on this data that I have, I can really kind of ballpark it either 8.5 to 9.2. I just kind of adjust the ranges a little bit, or an 8 to a 9. And I really, really try not to put the max grade as a 9.4, just because maybe 1 out of 8 books or 1 out of 10 books in this order were a 9.4, which when it's all said and done is going to end up being a few. So I've got another small stack of books to go through where I'm going to show you the books. And I think one of the things that's annoying me personally when I watch these videos is I keep showing the books and showing you some of the defects in the bag. I really don't like that. I don't like when I'm watching videos and they're like, look at this book. Doesn't this look like near mint? And it's in the bag and board. And I'm like, I really shouldn't do the things that I don't like to do. So I've got about 5 books to go through. I'm going to go ahead and assess the books, give them my initial grade, take them out of the bag and board this time, let you take a look and kind of maybe make your guesses on the conditions. See if I'm grading them accurately, if you think that I'm being too harsh, or if I'm undergrading the books. I'd love to get your feedback. But let's get to the next set of books in this part 5 of 7 parts unboxing spectacular. All right, here we go. Let's get the next stack going. Just going to take them right off the top. All right, here we go. And the first book is Eternals number 11. And I think I've mentioned this before. The Eternals, a lot of people don't like that movie, don't like that Eternals entry into the MCU. I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good. And I think what we're seeing is everybody's so down on the MCU right now that I think it's affecting the comic book values. I think people are so invested. Like, I'm going to buy every issue of Eternals, and the movie's going to come out. It's going to be great. I'm going to be rich. And now people have just forgotten about it and don't really care because they're so soured on the film. So let's take a look at the condition. It looks, at first glance, looks to be really nice. I don't see any, like, big creases or anything. And this is why I bid on so many books in this auction, because I thought they were all similar. Now, we'll see a little bit of corner wear, which is borderline acceptable. I do think that that could cause this book to be a 9.6 right off the bat, but let's hold off for just a second and still consider it to be a 9.8. All right, so let's take a look at the spine here. The spine looks very, very good. I see one tick right in here. Oh, where did you go? Right there. Very, very small, but strong spine otherwise, looks really good. I would say this looks cleaner than the books I've been receiving as well. It still, as I turn the book over down here on the back, still I'd like to give it maybe one pass of a wet cleaning just to see if I could get rid of some of that. But that's not going to really reduce the grade. It does have a stacking crease right here that should be able to come out with the press. When I see the stacking crease, this one's also, I'm on the fence. I've seen some 9.8s that I have a stacking crease, but then I don't know if it's reversion. But I always typically move it down a grade if it has that stacking crease, but I would press it anyway to try and get rid of it. So I'm thinking, okay, the stacking crease with the corner, I'm probably thinking 9.6 already. Here's the other thing right here. This corner has a small dog ear right there that probably goes through. Actually, it doesn't. Pages look fine. I don't see any other problems there. The good news is I don't think that breaks color, so that looks all right. It's just a crease, but if the crease was left in there, I'm probably already down to a 9.4. And then also along this edge here, I see a little bit of creasing right over the flap. It's very minor, but right in there. Hard to see. Maybe you could see it right in there. So it's probably one of the better conditioned books that I received from Quality Comics. I feel like if I could press out that stacking crease and that dog ear, it's probably a 9.6. So I'm going to leave this. This is where it's like borderline. Do I go ahead and be particularly harsh and give it a 9.2? I don't think I can. I really don't. I think even this dog ear, when you're looking at it like that, you don't really see it, and then you flash it in the light and you can see it where the corner kind of comes up there. And I think because it doesn't break color, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9.4, particularly because the spine is so strong. So that's kind of like how I go through and grade these books. And like I said, please let me know what you think. If you think the dog ear and the stacking crease drop it to a 9 or 9.2, I really don't believe that, and I don't see any color breaking ticks at all along the spine. So this happens to be one of the better conditioned books here. This is Eternals 11. You got the first appearance of Druig, the first appearance of Kingo. Both of those characters appeared in the Eternals MCU film. I imagine they will be in Eternals 2, so great characters. And they're in this issue of Eternals number 11. All right, so there we go. Eternals 11 in a fresh bag and board. And there I give it the 9.4 with the clean and press indicator. Like I said, one of the better conditioned books. I think I'd mentioned that I'm not getting that many 9.4s right out of the gate, but that was certainly one. The next book, Spider-Man number 7. I grab a lot of these Spider-Man titled McFarlane issues, not the Amazing Spider-Man McFarlane issues. This is the Spider-Man titled series that he wrote and penciled. And while I have a number of these, this is, for those newsstand fans, a newsstand. There it is, the barcode itself. And it's one of these sort of working theories where if you grab books that are in newsstand that are in high volume and high availability in direct, then you can get a little bit of a value bump. So let's take a look at the condition of this. I thought this was pretty good. I don't see anything major. Anything right there is because of the staples right on the edge there. I thought that was a crease or a tear, but it looks to be okay. Yeah, it's really close. I think it's okay. A touch of spine splitting, but not that bad. Maybe similar to what you'd see on a cardstock type comic, but I think for a newsstand copy, this is pretty strong. Corner is definitely acceptable. Just very, very minor wear right in there, but I still think that that's acceptable. Other corners are sharp. No glaring like creases or anything. Looks really nice on the front cover. There's nothing there. So I think this is a 9.8 candidate. And then just flipping it over to look at the back, the edges look strong. This might be my first 9.8 that I assign a book. I'm trying to look at it again. I do see a little bit of something here on this corner right there. Yeah, I don't know if that's enough to drop it to a 9.6. That's really close. I'm looking for any other defect anywhere else on the book so that I could justify the 9.6. There's just the slightest of creases right in there. I'm being super nitpicky right now, but there's just a very, very light minor crease. I would probably throw this in a 9.8 pre-screen because it's so borderline. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it a 9.8. I'm maybe a little bit of creasing right in there, right there. I might have caught it. I'm just trying to decide if I would put it down as a, yeah, I got to do a 9.6 with a press. It's so close. It really is close. But even in here, get the light on it right there, there's just a little bit of an indentation. It's all of these creases that I'm showing you with the light. They're very, very subtle, but they're there. I can see them. So I'm going to assign that a 9.6. But for this being a newsstand copy, I think that that's a very, very nice grade. I think if it gets the quickest of quick presses, some of those really minor creases come right out, and that very well could be a 9.8. All right, so there we go. That's Spider-Man 7, the newsstand variant with the 9.6 and the press indicator. Next up is another newsstand copy of Spider-Man, and this is issue number 6. So, I mean, McFarlane really, he knows what he's doing, but we've got Ghost Rider on issue 7, Hobgoblin on issue 6. It was just like, let me just take the best toys in the Spider-Man universe, or even the Marvel universe in general, and let me take all these toys out and play with them. And let's take a look at Spider-Man 6. It looks to me, just at first glance, we're kind of dealing with the same quality. I think everything looks pretty good. Right here is where I'm seeing the problem with this one. Right there in the white, I've got a little bit of a crease there. Now, I would try and get that out with some humidity. A very, very slight stacking crease and a little bit of whitening down here in the corner. So this one probably is going to max out at 9.6, particularly with that corner. Back looks fine. I don't see anything wrong with the back. Yeah, everything looks good. Just the corners. I'm going to have to deal with that corner there and there. So 9.4, 9.6. I think because of this right here, it's a 9.4, most likely. And then I would still mark this as a press candidate, but maxing out at 9.6. All right, there you go. There's Spider-Man 6, the newsstand variant, in a 9.4 with that press indicator. So overall, not too bad so far. We've got a 9.4 clean and press, a 9.6, and a 9.4. So higher grades than previously, but we're dealing with the Copper Age Spider-Man as well, so that's probably as to be expected. Next up is Fantastic Four 87. So let's go all the way out of the Copper Age and get back here to some good old Silver Age Fantastic Four. This one I knew was not going to be a 9.2 or whatever my sort of average or expected average grade was for a book, but what I ended up doing with this one is really just kind of assessed the grade blindly through the scan as best I could and added my bids relative to the grade. Now, this one is a tougher book. We've got the dark background here dealing with a lot of blues and yellows, very susceptible to a lot of different color breaking techniques and creases. And this book is definitely suffering from, I think, kind of defects that you would expect of this era. I still feel like, now when I'm kind of hunting for these books, I really target 6.0s, and giving this book kind of like, if I take a step back and just give it a general assessment, does it have, I always think for me, I use 6.0 as kind of a delineation for what I would consider to be mid grade. I know you could say, well, isn't mid grade 5, on the 10-point scale? But I always consider like 6.0 to be a book where it's still very presentable when you're dealing with like Golden Age and Silver Age, early Bronze. Once you get like 5 and below, you're really dealing with a lot of drastic color breaks and so forth. And the first thing I always look at is the top. Not sure why I always look at the top. At the top, typically, for when you're dealing with like 5 and below, usually the top has some crunching going on and a lot of various color breaking and folds along the top. And then I usually go to the bottom, and this one has a little bit down here, but it's not bad. It's still pretty crisp. So then I feel like, okay, we're probably dealing with a 6.0 and up, but just how much beyond a 6.0 is this book? If we look at the corner, it's pretty mashed, and the spine, like I said, it's very typical, I would say. But do I see anything that would prevent this from getting a 6.5, a 7? It looks very, very solid. Let's turn it over for the back. The back is quite dirty, dealing with some sort of stain there at the top. So I don't know if we're going to get into the 7s with this book. But overall, yeah, I think as I'm looking at it, I'm probably thinking 6.5. There's part of me, a lot of this is kind of a gut feel. Like, I would say, yes, this should be a 7.0, maybe even a 7.5. But then the more that I look at things, I see just little ticky-tack type creases here and there. Certainly this edge, not color breaking, but a lot of rippling along the edge here that would need to be smoothed out in some way if I were to press it. And then down here, another dog ear. But I don't really see that many color breaks. You could argue that a book like that could also be in the 8s. That's where if I start to feel like, well, if I'm probably being a little too harsh on a book, then I'll give it that 0.5 bump, right? So if I assessed it and went, this is like a 6.0 that I would typically see, but I also see a lot of quality to the book. It's very, very well wrapped, really great presentation style. Then is it possible it could be a 7.5 or an 8? I still don't think so, but even when that possibility enters my mind, then I say, well, it's not a 6, it's got to be a 6.5. And I know I'm not being like mathematically and scientifically correct as a grader. I'm just sort of explaining my gut feel. I could certainly take the book and start counting spine ticks, but I think that's where I've got to put it in the hands of a professional grader to figure out where is that 0.5 or full grade kind of moving up and down with a book like this. These sort of books that are in like the 4 to 7 range are the toughest to really grade, in my opinion. So I think I'm okay with giving this book a 6.5. There is part of me that wants to give it a 7, but I don't know. I think the stain on the back right there, that's preventing me from giving it a grade that high. The back doesn't look too bad other than the dirt itself. I don't see, there's no tearing on any of the pages, which is nice. Even the page quality, there's Doom himself. What a great panel that is. Look at that. That's awesome. It's off-white to white, most likely. I think this has a chance of being a 7. I would probably have to run it through a delicate press myself to really consider it being a 7, but I'm going to mark it a 6.5. I think that's a completely fair grade. I think there's arguments that could be made that no, you actually are looking at a 7.5, and I would really love to be wrong. I'm going to assign it a 6.5 with a clean end press, so that if I wanted to come back and look at the book, I would know what kind of effort I would have to put into the book to potentially get it out of the 6s and into the 7s. All right, there we go. An excellent issue of Fantastic Four, number 87. I love anytime I can find a sub 100 issue of FF with that gorgeous Jack Kirby art. And there it is. I assigned it that 6.5 with the clean and press indicator. And the last book in this stack, back to Eternals. This is Eternals number 2. And in Eternals number 2, we have the first appearance of Arishem and the first appearance of Ajak. So definitely a key issue when you're thinking about the Eternals. And let's take a look at the grade of this book, see how it holds up. And we've got definite curling happening with the book, you can see there. So I'd love to be able to flatten that out. And not as good a shape as the other Eternals book. A little bit of corner wear there at the top. Not bad, though. and some just random small ticks along the spine here, here. There you go. Right there, you can kind of see just little subtle ticks, but nothing color breaking. A little bit of a corner crunch happening here, but not too bad. And then on the back's actually pretty clean. I'm quite surprised. I don't see a lot of the typical dirt that is on a book like this. So very, very happily surprised here. Down there, we've got one last little crease right in here related to that corner crunch, I think, but that also is fixable. The corner crunch is something, though. I typically grade that pretty harshly, unfortunately. So I feel like I kind of need to work on this as a 9.4 and work backwards. And I'm just moving everything back and forth in the light. We've got another crease happening here, right in there. So 9.4, 9.2. And then I think just in general, the curling and the other random ticks, I have to move this book down into the 9.0. This crease is actually it's maybe a whole inch. It's covering quite a bit of the book right there under the trade. But much more presentable, I think, if it could be pressed out a little bit, flattened to get rid of that curling, but really not much work at all in terms of any of the dirt or other presentation. A very, very strong copy of Eternals #2. God, the Jack Kirby art is just astonishing there. Incredible. So I'm trying to debate, is it a 9 or a 9.2? A little bit of an issue right there by the staple, too. Now I'm starting to just nitpick the book. I feel like just to be on the safe side, I'm going to give it a 9.0. And this book probably, if I'm done with it, probably maxes at a 9.6. I hesitate to say 9.8. I think this corner is probably what's going to keep it from getting the highest of grades right there. So I think it is an opportunity to take it from a 9.0 to a 9.6, but I'm going to go ahead and mark it 9.0. And do I mark it as a book that needs to be cleaned? I probably say no, but then again, all of these books in this age might benefit from it, so that's tough. A borderline on that. I feel like my first reaction was that it was quite clean and didn't need it, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to mark it as a 9.0 and just a pressing candidate. All right, so there we go. Eternals 2 in a fresh bag and board, marked appropriately as a 9.0 and a pressing candidate. So a really, really nice and interesting set of books here. The 2 Spider-Man newsstand, the 2 Eternals with key first appearances of Eternals characters, and a great Silver Age book in Fantastic Four 87. And there you go. So now I've actually graded these books on camera, as I typically would, out of the bag and board. I hope that previously when I was showing you in the bag, hopefully that wasn't too annoying. I annoyed myself with it, and I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach with this one and really show you the book front and back, raw, out of the bag. Let me know what you think of the grades I assigned. Was I too harsh? Was I too lenient with some of the grades? Let me know if you agree or disagree. But the Fantastic 487, of course, is going to pull down that average grade across the entire order. But I think for what I paid for it, I was expecting it to be in sort of like a 5.0, 7.0 type of range, or maybe even a 6 to an 8. And I think even giving it a 6.5, I still feel like I'd love to see a 7.0 out of that. But I think, again, in fairness, I'd rather be wrong in the right direction than to claim that that's an 8.5 or some sort of VF plus VF near mint copy. I think like a fine plus is probably in a very, very appropriate grade for that book, but still very happy and very surprised to add these books to my collection in the grades that they are currently in. And I'm excited because I think all of them have some potential to be even improved upon the grade that I assigned. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.